the great conservative movement of America and of our time. A brush fire of freedom is being lit all over this country. We, as an irate, tireless American populace, will overcome the few radical leftists that control the levers of power today. Joe Biden's failed economic policies has given us inflation like you can't believe, and the border is in disarray.
It's amazing how few of the people commenting on this have actually bothered to go see what's happening. Well, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona actually went to the border.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, Andy. There's a guy. He's tough.
Hello, everyone. My name's Andy Biggs. I'm the fifth congressman for the 5th Congressional District. Had trouble getting that out there. But we're certainly glad you joined us today for another episode of What's the Biggs Idea, my semi-regular podcast. I am so honored to have a good friend, and this guy, he's all over. I'm sure you've seen him, Ben Berquam. Ben is the host of Law and Border on Real America's Voice News. He's the founder of Frontline America. He's an incredible field reporter. I cannot tell you how many times I've run into Ben here and there around the country. He's down there all the time. And Ben, thanks for joining me today.
Congressman, it is an honor as always. It's always great to see you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate all the hard work you do. And ladies and gentlemen, just understand, Ben is all over the border issue and has been for I don't know how many years now. But let's talk about it. You've been down there for the last 7 to 10 days, both pre-Title 42 going away, post-Title 42 going away. What are you seeing? What are people that you're talking to telling you?
Well, yeah, we've been covering this for years now, as you mentioned. And I actually intentionally went down prior to Title 42 going away. I was in Matamoros and Brownsville. Absolute disaster down there. Thousands of people camped out on the Matamoros side, coming in every single day. Last number I heard was around 10 to 15,000 that are spread throughout the city. There's a camp right there that just continually fills with tents, and that's not getting any better. I then took a week. We went down to El Salvador, met with Bukele's people to show a country that's actually turning around. It's really the only Central American country that's going in the right direction, restoring the rule of law. And we're actually a country that we used to have so many people fleeing to get away from the cartels and MS-13 and Barrio 18, that now we actually have people repatriating from America back to El Salvador because of the work President Bukele's done there. We just came back, and I spent the week down starting in Brownsville, and we did an entire week across the border where we ended up. I was in San Ysidro yesterday morning. And basically what I wanted to do was same thing, see what Secretary Mayorkas had said and what we're hearing out of Washington, D.C., and compare on the ground the reality of it. And I can just tell you very simply what Secretary Mayorkas said, what Chief Ortiz is saying, what Joe Biden is saying is a lie. It's not misleading. It's not accidental. They know exactly what they're saying. Secretary Mayorkas says the border is secure, and he is lying, and he knows it. But the biggest point, and I want to make this on the front end, and I'll make it again multiple times so people get this, is what they've done is they've changed the definition. So what they're saying now is we're having decreased numbers come across after Title 42. They said they had this new plan they're rolling out. The reality is the only reason we have decreased numbers of illegals coming across is because they've changed the definition. Now everybody is going through this CBP1 application process. And basically what that does is allow you to come in and for sometimes an unspecified amount of time, sometimes you get a court date 2 years from now, you're allowed to stay in the country. And it can be for just about any reason and from anywhere in the world. They were saying it's specific countries. What we found out is it's basically anywhere in the world. You sign up for this, you get transferred to an NGO. That NGO basically takes you in and then distributes you through the country. And what the administration is saying is, oh, these are all legal entries. Well, the reality is they were all illegal until you change the definition.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get to 2 or 3 things and unpack what you just said. First of all, they're using the parole authority of statute of Title 8.
That's right.
The problem with them is they know that Title VIII is meant to be a case-by-case, rarely used individual prerogative authority to bring somebody in. So prior to the Joe Biden administration, the most we really ever saw is somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or 25 a year, because they were so focused and individual. Even Secretary Mayorkas has testified before Congress that he knows it's an individual case-by-case right. But when they went to the CBP app, CBP1 app, they ostensibly was to facilitate parole from 4 nations, right? And the other thing I just say with regard to the parole thing that's going on, they paroled more than 300,000 people. The administration did last fiscal year. This year, it's going to be somewhere at least 750,000. So that when you talk about that, that's kind of the parole thing. But I wanted to get to this other thing. Yuma is seeing, for instance, a huge number of people coming from Africa, and you talked about people from all over the world. What you send us a video. I want to play that video about the nationalities, okay, and nationality ID, and then get your reaction to your own video. So Matthew, if you can please queue up and play clip number 1 for us.
Iran, Ghana, voter card, Dominican Republic, and on and on and on and on and on. And you know why they drop them? Because we can't vet them. Unless they show up on Interpol, unless they're in our system, we have no clue who these people are. So they come in, they're coached by the NGOs, dump your stuff, and they simply walk into America. And nobody comes down here to pick it up. Nobody comes down here to verify who these people are.
Yeah, Ben, I'm just saying, man. I've seen that type of thing as well. And you were in Yuma. That's Yuma with that little bridge over there that you found. Tell us about that. What's going on as far as countries that are represented in those who come illegally into the United States?
Well, real quick before that, so that bridge you saw in the background, that's the bridge that separates Algodones from Yuma. Now, that's the Colorado River that runs through there. And that bridge was created by the cartels to allow people to come across. Border Patrol knows about it. In fact, I asked Border Patrol about it, and their response to me was, we leave it there because we figure it's safer for them to come across that way than to go through the water. So they know it's there. They know people are coming across illegally. Again, this is what Secretary Mayorkas said was not going to happen. He said only legal entries were going to be allowed in. I witnessed hundreds in one night come across there, thousands every week that have come across there, sometimes thousands a night. And that entire area is controlled by the cartels. And what I found while I was there just 2 days ago is the shift on demographics, where we used to get mostly Central American countries. Right. Now what we're seeing, huge numbers from Mauritania, huge numbers from the Sudan, huge numbers. And I hadn't seen any of this from Egypt. About a third of the group that came across the other night was from Egypt. Also had people coming in from Iran and Somalia. Lots and lots and lots of people coming from Somalia. And the moral of the story is, as they drop those, the reason that's so critical that we pick up those IDs and we actually try to process them is, unless, like you said, unless you've committed a crime in America, the Sudan doesn't share information with us. Most Middle Eastern countries, most African Islamic countries don't share information with us. So you could be a criminal in that country. You could be a terrorist potentially in that country. And unless you show up on Interpol, or unless you're from a country that we share information with, we have no clue. You can make up any name you want. You can make up any history you want. You can make up any family you want. And that's one of the things we see too, is men coming over with children that they've purchased along the way and using those children as to represent a family, which we know now under these new Title VIII policies that basically if you come across as a family, we're letting you in, no questions asked, until you get to your court date, which you show up for or you don't show up for. It's all part of this bigger umbrella, as you mentioned, this explosion of who we're letting in. And it all goes back to under Obama, it was refugee resettlement program. He basically took that program and said, how can we expand that? Now they've taken that and they've it's exponentially grown it to this, basically it's for lack of a better term, it's open borders by a different name. It's an invasion by a different name. It's basically, we're just legalizing the invasion into our country by using CBP-1 app. And again, Border Patrol doesn't even go down there to get these documents. Now, we hand these over. All these documents we hand them over to Homeland Security. Sheriff Wilmot does a really great job. And hopefully we can track down some of these people. And if they're here with bad intentions, we can catch them before they.
Yeah, Ben, just so everybody knows who Sheriff Wilmot is. Sheriff Wilmot is the sheriff of Yuma County. And I think Ben, are you back? We kind of lost you for a sec.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. So I would just tell you that we lost you for a sec, but I've been down there. You not only do you see IDs, you'll see travel plans. And so that's how we knew people were coming in through Cancun and Mexico City, because they would leave their itineraries right there. So, I mean, it's amazing what's happening there. And in Yuma, I will just tell you, for a good portion of last year, Brazilians were like the number one. But now you're seeing so many more from Africa. And I'll just tell you, I've been down there and seen 20 people in a group from Russia and another 30 or so from Ukraine, and then Uzbekistan. I mean, just a massive amount of people. The cartels control that border, and so it's really wild. Now I wanted to talk to you about something else too. When this administration says that everything's down, I think they're fudging numbers, and distorting.
100% they are.
But beyond that too, Ben, is the inputs are still high and growing. You've been down to Darien Gap. Why is the number of people? And I talked to Michael Yan. I talked to him this week. 2,000 a day coming through Darien Gap. Tell everybody about where it is and why that's important to the inputs to the illegal migration coming across our border.
Well, it's upstream, and so if we want to know what's coming to our southern border, we need to go upstream and see that. And Darien Gap is it's a bottleneck. It's a bellwether for what will be at our doorstep within. It used to be months. Now it's sometimes days, if not weeks. And so I was actually just down there with Michael Yan just a few weeks ago as well. We were actually being escorted back. We were going in the reverse direction to go back to the Colombia side with Senafront, the special forces of Panama, and we were actually involved in a firefight. With the Colombian Gulf Cartel, and ended up killing one of the cartel members, apprehending two others who are now in Panamanian prison. Thank God none of our guys were injured, but it's the Wild West of border. It's what's coming to us. And so that's why we're down there, we're covering it. And yes, the numbers are staggering. In a place, it's basically, it's hell on earth. I mean, it's naturally beautiful. It's an amazing jungle, but it's one of the deadliest places on the planet. And you have thousands of people coming through, military-age men from all over the world. As you mentioned, we have huge numbers coming from China now, from Asia, but again, from Africa, from the Middle East, everywhere. And what we're seeing, so everything, as you mentioned, coming out of Washington, D.C., last week, right after Title 42 went away, we saw a little bit of a dip in the numbers. The main reason that actually happened was because National Guard on the Texas side went down, and Governor Abbott finally did what he said he was going to do for a long time. And he had DPS and National Guard actually stand their ground and say, you're not coming across here. And what that did was basically take the illegals that were waiting on the Mexico side and said, well, let's figure out where we can go. And so what you have right now is a shifting, a migration on the southern border from places like Texas, and they're moving out west, and they're finding places to cut across. The cartel are moving, so we have more people out in the deserts that the cartel are moving that don't want to get caught. But it's just a shifting, a reorganizing of where people are crossing. And the other biggest factor, again, going back to the CVP-1, is changing that definition. So if all you have to do is sign up on this app, I met a guy, like I said, came from Nigeria. He landed the day before yesterday, and yesterday he was accepted through the CBP-1 process. No background check, no information gathered, and he was let into our country. That person 2 weeks ago, a month ago, 3 months ago, would have been considered an illegal. Now, Washington is saying, well, that person is here legally. When in reality, if they show up for their court date, which most of them won't, they will be expelled. And so these people are illegals being invited in. What we see going on in the Darien Gap now is a massive wave of people that are coming. There's a massive bottleneck. And basically, you can think of it as a balloon that's expanding. And so we have more and more and more and more people that are coming in. Same thing happening in Tapachula, Mexico, the southern point of Mexico. As we send people back to Tapachula, Mexico is is artificially holding these people back. And so the numbers there are increasing. And at some point, that balloon is going to burst again, like we see over and over and over. And then Washington, the Democrats, these open borders leftists, the NGOs, then hair on fire. We need to do something about this. This is a humanitarian crisis. We have to let them all in. And that's what we see over and over and over. We create a problem that then we fix by inviting more of the problem. That's what's going on right now.
And so that's kind of, we lost you again, Ben, but the flow, we were talking about controlled flow. I think that's where you were headed, man, because we've seen that in Northern Triangle states. We see it in Tapachula. So, I mean, that's the real thing. I want to get to you before we go and run out of time. You've done some good work on NGOs, and people don't understand that the NGOs actually, the federal dollars get laundered and go to some of these NGOs who then in turn recruit and facilitate illegal immigration. So let's watch your clip on NGOs. Matthew, will you please do cue number 2, please?
People come in through this process, they make money on all this, they get grants from the federal government, which you pay for, taxpayers pay for, and then the people come across, I want to talk to them, we're having a good conversation, and she shuts them down. This is the problem. These organizations are the problem, and they're making millions of dollars. And this whole new CBP1 application process, Biden and Mayorkas are pushing through. It's basically just a way to bypass and change the definition from illegal to legal.
Yeah, Ben, elaborate please for us.
Yeah, so that was one of the groups that was in San Ysidro yesterday. Again, finishing up our border tour to see what was going on. And this group was Jewish Family Services, but very similar to Catholic Charities and Lutheran Social Services. There are 9 primary NGOs that operate the refugee resettlement program. And then there are hundreds of auxiliary tentacles of this cancer that operate this. What was started off as a good program to save people from war-torn countries has now just metastasized into this catch-all, and they are making millions of dollars. So what happens, they operate on both sides of the border. They train people, they teach people on how to break American immigration law. It's basically immigration fraud. And then they receive them when they come to the U.S. side, and they get the money to do it, to distribute them throughout the country. What we're being told, I've been told by Border Patrol, is actually they're acting right now as the middleman between the cartels and Border Patrol. And we have direct evidence of these organizations actually working directly with the cartels in many instances. So they're making money on both sides of it. They're operating at the expense of America. And sadly, American citizens were paying for it.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, that's so important. I just don't think most people get that. So I was asked today, Andy, would you support raising the debt ceiling if we included the HR2 border security measures that I actually sponsored a good portion of those? I said to him, well, the problem is not that it's not the laws. It's the fact of the matter is this is a lawless administration who will not follow the laws that we pass and get before them. Even if they sign them, they will not enforce them. And that's what you're seeing, Ben, firsthand and reporting on. And I encourage everybody to follow Ben. Hey, Ben, how can they follow you on social media?
Well, most important thing, we have a new episode of Law and Border coming out tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern on Real America's Voice News. You can get all the details on where you can see that: Dish Network, Roku, Pluto, if you go to americasvoice.news, and you'll see that there. And then my website's frontlineamerica.com. We're putting out articles on what we're covering every single day. And then my social media, pretty much everywhere, is at Ben Berquam. Last name is Bergquam.
Well, Ben, you're doing good work, and I appreciate your reporting. If there's something lively, I mean, you talked about him being involved in a firefight.
Yeah.
You had not told me that one yet, Ben. So that's pretty amazing. Folks, if you want to get more information on this and other current events, Ben Berquam is the guy that you want to follow. And so, Ben, I thank you for joining me today. It's awesome as always to talk to you, and I look forward. And I'll either see you, at some event or along the border soon, I know. But if you want to follow me, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow me at Rep. Andy Biggs AZ. Truth, same, Twitter or Truth. You can go to Facebook, Instagram, go to bigs.house.gov. If you want to listen to this episode again, you can go to either Spotify or Apple Podcasts to What's the Bigs Idea. But I would just encourage you to follow Ben. He's got so much information that's going to help you understand this as we continue to fight against our own government, which is willing to open and erase our border and erode our sovereignty. Ben, thanks for all your good work, man, and we'll see you on the trail.
Yes, sir.